Hello and welcome to another modelling video. This is Alan from the Man at YouTube with another model video. Today we're going to be working on a Sparrow cast kit. This one was a bit of an abortion job. Very poorly done when presented to me. It's depicting a Mark II cruiser tank, British. It was picked up for $10 in this little baggie and required quite a large amount of work removing flash and cleaning up. As always, safety precautions were taken. The resin was washed in detergent soapy water, and all sanding and cutting was done either with a respirator or wet sanded and not airborne whatsoever. So we're very clean resin, as we usually do. Having a closer inspection, the air bubbles due to poor casting was absolutely insane. It was almost like the surface of the moon, fine craters and textures, as well as larger holes. The large flash and pore areas were removed, and each of these holes are filled with quite a dense bog putty. This was sanded back, primed, and primed with the thickest spray putty I could find, followed by a further round of putty, to a point where a lot of the detail was flooded over many sessions. At the club meets, a lot of my friends made fun of me with this futile efforts of trying to finish it, and I made it a challenge just to get it off my workbench. Now, the chances of doing a clean or reasonable wartime rendition of this tank, with the details slowly being flooded out and the texture being bizarre and molested with so much sanding and putty, I decided to do a bit of reference digging and searching on Google, and I found these really awesome junkyard shots of these tanks painted white, and rust and grit and dirt just raining down in these awesome streaks and chips. These are two of British design tanks, and other ones such as T-34s and German Panzers and whatnot. They just get all the way up to a oxidized red rust, almost completely disintegrated. Junkyard stuff. With new inspiration to finally finish this, further putty and sanding, still in a strategic manner not to cover too much, and a little bit of scribing, we were done in a more or less satisfactory session and lost all of those tiny moon surface craters. Everything was primed in Guy Note oxidized red surface primer, and then dabbed on using a sponge, a lighter rust colour. I sprayed it down with hairspray and applied enamel white paint, and while it was still wet, with a cotton swab and a bit of thinner, removed as much as I can to get some of the rust showing through. Once dried and it cleared top coats, many different colours of browns and rust sludge washes were applied, some of them strategic, some of them just drenching the model. Each coat took a while to dry, followed by a few clear coats to seal it all in, and some matte coats. Applying with a fine brush, I got some pigment, particularly from MIG and some of the new SMS stuff, and created streak lines that were very light rust colours and a darker brown to make it look like rain was just constantly going down, and heavy build up under detail and raised surfaces. Once that was done, more coats of sludge wash of oranges and browns to darken that and not have too much white like the photos. This was a purely experiment to see how far I can get with different methods. Some I've never applied to a model before. How heavy weathered I can get something to look based off reference photos, and just have a bit of a play around with intense enamel solvents being applied and drying times, and I kind of screwed that slightly and made a few mistakes. Really good for understanding patience in weathering and allowing each coat to dry over a much longer period than what was pulled up, because the matte coat wasn't quite the best. In the end, it was a lot of fun. I'm definitely going to take a lot of things that I've learnt from this kit and carry it on. The final finish is not ideal, but it is very cool, and I definitely kind of dig it as something that's completely different to all the other 70-second kits I've built and currently got on display. I think of each heavy sludge wash layer allowing 2 to 3 days to dry thoroughly, so there's just no moisture or stickiness to it before the pigment goes on, before any of the top coats go on. The finish very well could have been completely different and a lot more distinguishable between the streaks and other elements. An effect like this will be attempted again in the future. Thank you very much for watching. As always, until next time, stay tuned for further content. Once a week to twice a week uploads. Further stuff can be found on Facebook. There's always a lot of links in the description section, and have a read of it because there's always little extra tidbits and sources added. Catch you guys next time.